We're here to mark and commemorate the centenary of General Michael Collins, one of the most revered Irish soldiers ever. Not just in Ireland, but around the world. He was a man of action. He brought the enemies of the Irish nation to their knees and forced them to the negotiation table. He utilised everything at his disposal. He literally made the most of what he had, and that's what the soldiers did back then, all the patriots. That was then, but this is now. Mass immigration into Ireland is the choice of weapon of the liberal bourgeoisie and their handlers, international finance capital. Surely we must respond in kind, because right now, demographically, we are at below replacement rates. Unrestricted immigration into this country is being used as a biological weapon against the Irish nation. Surely our best weapon now is for our young people to have large families. That's our best weapon right now. I'm calling on all young Irish people in their 20s to start families young. That's the most patriotic thing that young Irish people can do, boys and girls. That's the best thing the Irish nation can wish for. Because if we stay on this trajectory, we will no longer exist.
We have come here to Bail na Blá, the famous and tragic site of the death of General Michael Collins in 1922. All civil war, by its nature, is a bloody affair. But what made the Irish Civil War peculiar and particular was that it was not divided on geography, but rather was a division within households, within townlands, even within some people's own heads, as they tried to grapple with the issues of whether the treaty should have been signed or should not have been signed, and what it would have meant if it hadn't been signed, and what it did mean when it was. In other words, did we achieve the freedom that Collins spoke about when he talked about the freedom to achieve freedom? Or did we in fact sell that away? And was the selling basically enacted along this road here, when the one man who might have forced the issue, when the one man who was continuing to press the ideal that the treaty was only a means to an end, not an end in itself, that he was cut down here? We will never be certain. We will never be certain by whom the shot was fired. But there is a great deal of questions surrounding the orthodox version of what happened here. But what we can know is who benefited. Cui bono, who benefited the most from the fact that Michael Collins met his last day here. It was the Free State government, the satisfied Free State, because from the moment the treaty was signed, Ireland divided not in two, but in three. Those who believed that the treaty was a sellout and a betrayal of the Republic, it's a legitimate point of view. Those who believed that it was the freedom to achieve freedom, that was a legitimate Republican objective. And those who, like William Cosgrave in particular, to put a face on it, who were satisfied with the prestige and the power that came with the offices that came through the treaty, and had no desire anymore to push any further for a republic, had no desire within the 26 counties, and certainly had no desire to tackle the enormous problems that the 6-county partition had created. He preferred, and his subsequent leaders after him, even those like De Valera, who had been anti-treaty during the Civil War, they too accommodated themselves to a sham Free State pseudo-republic. And it is the one we still have. Remember, Bunreacht na hÉireann doesn't declare an Irish Republic. The Irish Republic was declared in 1948 in Canada, on the off chance, on the half turn. A classic Fine Gael manoeuvre. They still do it to this day, all the time. But there's no republic. What is the republic? The republic is not simply the absence of a British monarch. It is not even the absence of a monarch as such. That's a dictionary definition. But what the republic had always meant, what it meant to Tone, what it meant to Emmet, what it meant to Pearse, what it meant to the men of 1916, what it meant to the men who went out to fight during the War of Independence, is it meant a freedom for the Irish people to direct their own destiny, unhampered by any foreign force. Whether that force was British or whether that force was French, German, it was irrelevant. As Tone said, he said, if the only result of my actions were to replace British tyranny with French tyranny, I should not have done anything at all. Freedom from foreign rule in any form, and the right of the Irish people to own, in the first instance, the land of Ireland and their liberties within it. That was what the Republic was about. And a constitution should have laid down the mechanisms for a republic. De Valera's did not do that. Cosgrave wasn't interested at all in even the trappings of a republic. He was happy, to quote Kevin O'Higgins during the treaty debates, he was happy to go into the empire with his head held high. I don't know how anybody can come to this place and see and feel the absence here, the loss that Ireland suffered, and talk about walking into any British assembly with your head held high. When they conspired to kill this man, when they conspired against General Collins, they conspired against the Republic in far clearer and far more wary a fashion than any treaty signing had done, because they knew what they were doing. They were finishing with the idea of pushing the treaty's freedoms to achieve freedom. They were dumping on the Republic, and they were making the anti-treaties position quite clear that they had been right. They had been right. Now, if you ask me, and I'm not in the situation, so I could very easily say whatever I want here, but I would have signed the treaty. I would have been one of those who believed that the freedom to achieve freedom was within it. But there can be no gainsaying what actually happened. There can be no gainsaying that once Collins was out of the way, the Civil War took an even bloodier turn, with the most appalling atrocities. Yeah, they say on both sides, but the Free State was supposed to be the government. They were supposed to be the rule of law and order. They murdered across this land. And there are some Republicans even to this day, and they will say to you, oh, well, that's what Michael Collins brought. I don't think it was what Michael Collins brought, and I don't think it's what would have happened had he not died here. We come here in solemn remembrance and try not to be overcome by the emotion of loss. It's 100 years. And quite literally, it seems like it could have happened yesterday. The betrayal of the Republic certainly continues. And we don't have our Michael Collins. We don't have our laughing boy. We don't have a man of his stature and integrity to lead us forward. So we must, as a people, as an Irish people, we must lead ourselves. We must think of it, every one of us, as having a responsibility to the Republic. Every one of us taking it upon themselves to decide in the first instance, Ireland shall be free. To direct their own actions towards Ireland being free. To create the political impetus towards a national movement which will resurrect, I say, the principle takeaway from this place is not death. The principle takeaway is 100 years afterwards is resurrection. Resurrect the ideal of the Republic. It can be done. It can be done from where we are. And we don't need to argue about where we were 100 years ago. This man's loss must be made up. And such a giant figure can only be made up by thousands, literally thousands, of Irish men and women to fill the gap that he left. We honour him today. We honour his memory. And we pick up where he left off. We stand up on the cross down at that road there as a people and as a republic to carry forward the standard and belief that Michael Collins had in us and in Ireland. We can do that. Yes, you're right. Thank you very much.
I'm here outside the Greville Arms Hotel to commemorate General Michael Collins, as this building behind was owned by his fiancée Kitty Kiernan. Michael Collins achieved so much at 31 years of age. He was a freedom fighter, he was a nationalist leader, he was a general, an IRA commander. He fought the British to a stalemate and forced them to negotiate a peace treaty. No matter what side of that debate one takes, what they fought for and what Collins fought for has been so callously and outrageously betrayed by successive generations of Free State governments, culminating in the current slave-minded vassal state government of this country that have completely sold out on the nationalist principles of the likes of Collins and on men who fought with him, who subsequently even took both sides in the subsequent Civil War. Because Irish nationalism and the cause of Irish freedom has been completely sold out by careerist politicians who are focused on selling out their country to progress their own personal careers, bending the knee and genuflecting to the forces of globalism, which is about subjugating this country and Irish people to foreign interests. And if we look at this building here that the fiancée of Michael Collins, Kitty Kiernan, lived in, her family lived in at that time, and Michael Collins had many happy memories with Kitty Kiernan in. And this building behind is now being earmarked to become a direct provision centre for people who claim to be refugees from the Ukraine, who may or may not be from there. The policies pursued by the current government and the current regime of mass immigration and population replacement run completely counter to the principles of Irish nationalist leaders of 100 years ago, who wanted a free Irish republic, self-determination and independence for the Irish nation, for the Irish people now that are going to be subjected to more austerity, more economic hardship, an unpayable national debt, and runaway inflation and population replacement on top of that. We have a vassal state regime that run this country who are more interested in subjugating the Irish nation to the interests of international finance capitalist parasites and foreign corporate interests. And it is the job of the National Party, and it is the job of nationalists of today to take up the baton of the cause of Irish freedom and to carry it on in this century, in this epoch, in this generation.